Yeah.
We're doing 60%. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah, especially that's awesome if the individual cities couldn't afford it, right? It makes so much sense. Because it's kind of like, that's a really great device to have or a great
Yeah.
system to use. You know, why don't we divide it up? Well, yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
like we don't need lawn ornament that maybe we only use like a month.
Twice, right.
Okay, and they're gonna use it a month. and
think
they're
it
gonna
was
use it a
probably
month.
like
Why couldn't we get that
3 a.m. for breakfast.
Yeah,
experience with it?
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, it was kind of cool.
those are really cool. They got some really cool stuff. I've seen some like manhole rehabilitation things that are just like really super cool too. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
But again, most of that, you know, we hire out or whatever, so you'd
Right.
expect maybe your contractor or whatever to
So you gotta
do
figure
that
out,
kind of
like,
work.
Okay, how much are we doing to do that? And how much would it be to bring it in-house?
Yeah.
Right, and
Mhm.
figuring those numbers out.
Yeah.
There's a tipping point at some point, is the question. What's that? Oh, it is 6 o'clock. Okay, well,
Don't have anybody here.
we have,
No
Three.
quorum. And do I get to count twice?
Oh, is it because they're in the
Oh, wait a minute, Dan Roach.
oh, Dan Roach is here. He's online. Yeah, we do have a quorum. Okay. Well, it is 6 o'clock. We'll bring this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, oh, and we got people coming in.
Yeah, extra peoples.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Carter,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Swatman,
Present.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Here.
Councilmember Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Here.
Councilmember Hubler,
Here.
Councilmember McClymans,
Here.
and Councilmember Roach.
Here. All right. We have no presentations tonight, so we'll move on to review of council minutes. Councilmember Fullerton and Councilmember Hubler.
I did not see any changes.
I did not see any changes either.
Okay, great job by staff. We'll move on to council open discussion. Anyone for the good of the order?
Well, eventually, but I don't want to jump on top.
I think you might be it. Deputy Mayor Swatman.
My only it. Yeah, so Sadie and I have been working out some goal making setting sessions for, of course, the council retreat. We didn't have the big one this year yet or anything like that, but we do need to supply some goals to the city administration so that they can put together their budget more accurately. So we're talking about doing, unless somebody has significant objections later on this month, take like a council workshop, do kind of a little mini kind of concentrated effort on some goal setting issues. I don't know if anybody has any significant thoughts around that, but you know, just some specific things that we can supply the administration to hold up the vision, whatever that is, pieces of that for the city. That makes sense.
Mhm.
You know, we spend a lot of time trying to figure how do we do that from a council perspective to get things actually moved forward, right? So that we can actually have specific things, you know, like besides have great parks, it's like we need to improve park over here, more specific kind of thing, right? So that makes sense.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Are you proposing then during this mini discussion that we come prepared with thoughts or are, okay.
Yeah, I had a note that Sadie and I have been working on.
Thought.
We're working on like, you know, having like 5 specific kind of things that you're working on, short-term kind of things that could be achieved in the 2005 and 6 budget cycle, because we're doing a biennial budget, that the budget could support these 5 goals from the council members, and then 3 longer-term ones to work on. But they all kind of roll up underneath that vision kind of statement that, you know, is in the comprehensive plan. I can supply you with those kind of things here shortly. I just wanted to make sure that somebody wasn't, you know, that full council didn't want to do something totally different or something. So,
Are you thinking on the 28th?
yeah. Mhm.
Would we just come early that night? Just be here
Mm.
all day or?
Sadie shaking her head, so.
No, we were going to do it as part of the workshop, part of the meeting. So right now, the only thing I have scheduled for that meeting is all consent items, no full issues or anything. That way consent is vote yes, no, and then we go right into just talking council goals.
I'd be cool with that.
Sounds like a good enough time. Yay. We'll make sure Aaron does his first. He doesn't know that yet, right?
Right.
Oh.
Councilmember Fullerton.
I just have a quick reminder that on Tuesday, May 21st, we have canceled the CDC meeting that week for, in lieu of the water treatment plant tour that will leave here, the Justice Municipal Center at 3:45, and we will be back before 6 p.m. for the regularly scheduled workshop. So that is May 21st at 3:45 if you're going to ride the transportation provided by the city.
Thank you for that reminder. Somehow I didn't put that in my calendar.
Yeah.
Councilmember Baldwin.
And I'm assuming this tour is similar to the tour that was done previous as well, right? Okay.
One that was canceled. Yeah.
The one we did.
No, the one
No, I
2
wouldn't.
years
We did
ago.
one,
Yeah, 2
yeah,
years
one,
ago.
2
Yeah.
years ago, I think.
Okay.
Same thing. Well, we tried to do it and then didn't do it.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we did one 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Has it been 2 years?
I think it
Yeah.
has, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Has anything changed?
Nothing
I
ever
don't think so.
changes. They just do it with more technology, newer technology.
Okay. Better ways to dry some poop, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Is there open discussion?
There is.
Deputy Mayor Swatman?
And a further reminder, of course, because staff would like to remind council to read their emails every now and then. I don't know how, there's multiple ways you can get to your email. So if you have issues getting to your email, you can get with the administration to figure that out. But they do have timely things that come out on the emails every now and then, and they kind of need that feedback in there. So if you're having problems with that, we can figure that out. But please do try to check them every now and then. And then we are also, I think the chairs have seen the new agenda bill kind of thing, and we're still kind of working through that process to have that, because in my mind, it's kind of the responsibility of the chairs to make sure that the agenda bills get all checked off to go where the chair wants them to go. And it'll be pretty important. We'll kind of work through it a couple of times so that we can, right now they have a problem. Basically, sometimes an agenda bill won't be clear or won't pass through different hands. But if we can have the chairs make sure to, myself included, obviously, to stay on top of making sure we get all those boxes checked when they come out of the committee so staff actually knows where they go. It'd be appreciated.
We worked on the new checklist tonight at CDC.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? I will throw out thank you to all those that were able to make it to the summit last week on the 30th. It was a great turnout by Bonney Lake, and it was a great turnout for the hygiene drive, which was kind of cool between us and Sumner. Sorry to say that we lost, but we turned in a really solid effort. And I'm a little competitive, so I want to do a little bit better next year and definitely win that one.
More Q-tips.
More Q-tips, yeah, count each Q-tip by one, so. But yeah, thank you to the council who was all able to make it. We certainly appreciated having a nice group there. Any other discussion? I don't think we can, sorry, I see your hand up there. I don't think we can take during workshop.
Council,
Was
if I
there-
may, a point of order.
Oh,
Dan Roche isn't being visible to the.
I think-
on the screen, and I would like him to be visible, because I don't know that he's here otherwise.
was there a point of order from council? Or no? Parliamentarian, you can't, yeah, I can't do that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering if that is required by law that I have to be on there, if you can answer that.
I would turn that over to the city attorney.
Not that I'm aware of. Most some cities have council rules about having your camera on or not, but there's no legal requirement for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other open discussion, go to our first discussion item of the night, Madam Clerk.
This is a discussion item only for AB 2437, motion M 2437, a motion of the city of Bonney Lake, Pierce County, Washington, to temporarily cancel all meetings of the Arts Commission for the remainder 2024 while discussions, options, and decisions are being done regarding boards and commissions.
Discussion.
No discussion.
I know, it's kind of scary, right?
Seriously?
I just have a question. If someone can give the background note on why.
Yep. Turn over to Mr. Wells, looks like.
The orange button.
So the Arts Commission, since COVID, has struggled to get enough volunteers to fill out a full commission. And up until about a year ago, when we were able to actually get a full commission, enough to actually have votes, we changed the bylaws to allow for a minimum number of people to attend, which was 3. And we've still had trouble at times to have enough people to have a vote. So we've had to cancel a number of meetings. And unfortunately, we haven't gotten the work done that some of them would really like to get done. And there's also a number that are also getting worn out because they have been heavily involved in the Arts Commission since early on and are on the point of turning in resignations. So one of the thoughts was, as we are starting to move forward and look at things coming out of COVID, how do we best utilize staff time and how do we best utilize the volunteers that we have stepping up for different commissions to create what's in the best interest of the city overall?
Councilmember Baldwin.
What is the expectations, I guess, for the volunteers, for them to feel like they have to resign? Like, what is the expectation?
One volunteer that I know is about ready to resign just has a number of volunteer opportunities on her plate, and she doesn't have the bandwidth to really give more time. For instance, some of the programs that we've done in the past would include having a kids art booth at Allen York Park during Tunes at Taps, or running the gingerbread house contest, which last year we had one gingerbread house entered. And traditionally that program would actually probably start in early fall, late summer to start really setting it up. But because of not enough members making meetings, they weren't able to hold enough meetings to really get the ball rolling in a timely manner to get advertising out and the such. So
How many meetings are normally necessary, like in a year?
originally when it was set up, it was monthly. And then we recently changed it to quarterly.
Okay, so 4 times. Yeah.
And I know volunteerism in general right now is down with our local Lions Club. We're struggling with membership as well.
Deputy Mayor Swan.
Yeah, I think this is previously, because I think looking through all the goals of the council and stuff like that, we created previously was the Arts Commission or what have you, was one of the council goals a long time ago. So it's kind of sad to see that it's in this particular state. So we can't get volunteers for it or something. I don't have a problem canceling. The meetings are all, I think it's kind of a sad state of affairs if we're in a position where we can't even find enough people to, do that kind of a thing. I can't believe that there isn't people around that don't want to do that, but if there's not, I guess, right?
Is the Arts Commission an appointed position like the Planning Commission?
Mhm.
Can we reach out to some previous applicants and previous people who have run for election to see if they would be interested in
Just
being appointed to an arts commission?
We haven't received applications in a long time.
Is it something that we're not advertising for, or, because I didn't know anything about it, but.
They can turn in applications all year, and when we do have a vacancy, we do post it on the website, and all applications David receives, but we haven't had any new ones at all.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I wonder if there's a way that we can maybe just hold off on this and maybe put some advertising out there and reaching out to like previous applicants, like you said, to see if they would be interested in an opportunity like this. This is quite an opportunity instead of just not, I guess.
The previous applications are the ones that are currently on
Mhm.
the Arts Commission. Those are the previous applications. We don't have,
I'm talking about people that have like.
we have not turned anyone down because we've never had enough.
I think to
think
answer
you're
your question,
misunderstanding what
like,
I'm
for
saying.
instance,
Yeah.
Glory used to be an art commission member. She is no longer in the city of Bonney Lake, from my understanding. And I know Susie Fontaine is no longer inside the city of Bonney Lake either.
Oh, I'm
And so-
talking about the people that like just applied for the positions to be in government and didn't, they're not here, but it's a possible opportunity.
She's asking about past people that have run for council.
I mean, even ones when I was appointed, like there was a lot of great people that like came, you
Those would
know.
be people we could reach out to. We're like,
Well, I
encourage
think
them.
in the past, hasn't the mayor always appointed somebody who ran for election or reelection and didn't get on council, didn't get elected, or if they interviewed to be appointed, then we would reach out and give them the opportunity to be on one of the commissions so that they can kind of get their feet wet.
I believe if they put in an application, then the mayor
Yeah.
would do that. And
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so none of the applicants have put in an application.
yeah, just like,
But-
it's just like planning
Um,
commission. We put it out there that a lot of, hey, this is available too. And I don't know if we get one. We haven't received any. I'm sure.
What
Okay.
about, okay, so here's the question too, is the boy with birds statue that was stolen last summer. Would that be part of the Arts Commission, trying to get that redone? Have we contacted the insurance company? Have we gotten any information from the police department? Do we, like,
With the widow and she does not want
she doesn't want it redone?
it. But he was trying to read it.
Wow, that's sad.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Just kind of, I guess, going back to more solutions-based conversation, like, are we gonna advertise for it or are we just gonna just call it good?
I know it's been advertised for because I've seen it on our social media and on the website. So it's been out there. I've actually gone to people. I'm like, hey, like people that ran for the open position. I encouraged every one of them that I got to talk to, like, hey, we have planning commission spots open. We have arts commission spots open. Those are a great way to get your feet wet. That's how I got my feet wet. And nobody seems to want to do those pieces right now. And I don't know if maybe it's just not what they want. Maybe they don't really have the extra time. I don't know what I mean, we used to have a parks commission too, and that.
Quarterly. I just wonder if they know what the expectation is, right? Sometimes when someone's asking you to, volunteer for government, that might sound a bit hefty. But if you say like, oh, they meet once a quarter and, they work at beautifying the city. I don't know. If you guys want to just be done with it for the rest of the year, I understand that too. I'm just trying to think of an alternative option instead of just.
I mean, are we considering bringing it back at some point? I mean, we do need to kind of figure out what we're going to do with that big empty spot out there. So.
Yeah, I think there's some discussions about doing something else that would basically incorporate that as well. So essentially, but we'd have to get, the people that are interested and whatnot to doing those things. But yeah, the idea would be to bring it back maybe in another fashion or whatnot, but to do something with it.
And can council members be on that art commission?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I haven't read the code on that, but generally no, because they make recommendations to the council.
Okay.
So it would be problematic to make recommendations to yourself.
Oh.
Councilmember
Plus, her name is
Hubler.
Sybil.
I kind of remember before all the stuff happened recently, you had brought something forward, or you were bringing something forward to discuss about kind of restructuring
Yeah.
committees, wasn't it? Like
Those
the
are
Arts
stuff, yeah.
Commission and different things. And so I remember reading through some of that, thinking that
Mhm.
maybe that would be a better benefit for us. Is there some of that restructuring? If I don't remember, I think it was in March, February
Maybe
meetings.
Or so, yeah.
If you look back, there's some, like, he had like the stuff in our packet of like what he was thinking and how to restructure things. And I think those could help us maybe get more people involved if there's some
Hope so.
new ways to do things.
Yeah, that'll be the trick, right? And you're exactly right, because we've held off with those yet. There's those two. It's the citizen advisory, and then the youth junior council.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd
But-
like to open that up for,
Mhm,
have that
mhm.
presentation be brought back. We had to
Yeah.
cancel it that night.
Yeah. Yeah, those are both things that, of course, we're gonna require people too, so that's gonna be in the same. It's great if we could put those together. But yeah, it's gonna be more of the same, kind of like people want to do. They can't even get people to show up for an arts thing, which is kind of sad that,
If we have a student body running
Yeah.
their own student city council, then
Right.
maybe they'll come up with a commission,
They
arts
should.
commission from their arts program at the high
Exactly.
school.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. That'll be good.
Okay, do we have to
So what are we gonna do with this one?
vote on it?
I think it's just a discussion.
Oh, this is discussion on.
Okay.
It does say discussion, sorry, thank you.
We want it discussion, or do we just want to put it on the consent since we've already discussed?
Deputy Mayor Swan.
Whichever the council wants to do. Do you guys want to put it up there and just cancel them for the rest of the year, or did you want to just leave it open? If you cancel it, it's more certainty for staff, then they know what they're doing. They don't have to plan for the meetings and everything. I would assume that they're gonna leave applications always open for that still. So if, 10 people walk in there, then the mayor can come back and say, hey, we got a bunch of applications for the art commission. All of a sudden, we need to restart that. But for certainty kind of things, I think the council should probably just step up and say, we're gonna pause that program for right now. Right?
Well, that's 2 meetings, right? The third and fourth quarter.
Right.
That's where Baldwin.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding here. So if we pause the program, but for some reason applicants will still be able to apply, I'm not even sure how, but they would apply. How do they apply?
On the website.
On the website.
Well, I've been on the website. Like,
I know.
where?
It's,
There's a page on the Arts Commission webpage where you can apply for the position. And once the position application goes, you hit submit, that then comes to me in a seamless doc.
Okay.
And then what I've done in the past is taken that application to the commissioners and say, here's a new commissioner. Do you want to recommend that the mayor appoint this person? And it's always been a yes, because they're always looking for more bodies. And then the mayor has typically always appointed those people to fill out one of the terms that was open.
Councilmember McClymans.
So what are the rules with where and when the commission has to meet?
I believe the bylaws say that it will happen here in this building once a quarter.
But those are amendable then.
As long as you have a quorum.
Okay. Right.
The last meeting, we had one person show up.
Do we think we know what we're doing?
No.
Okay.
What was it? What was the decision?
I would be okay with it being moved to consent so that we can pause it until further notice.
Sounds good. That work?
I'm nervous about pausing it without some action plan to either recover it or cancel it, right?
Should we
I
put
mean,
it like to January, the first workshop or the first council meeting for discussion in January of 2025? And to reopen the discussion and
We could certainly do
see if
that.
we have any new applicants.
And if we come up with
Then-
an alternative of some sort, we would bring that back.
Yeah.
At that time, before then, hopefully.
Correct.
But yeah.
So if we get applicants and we have people that are interested, especially now if they realize that the art commission might be in charge of putting up a new statue design, then that might pique some interest for some people.
Sarah Baldwin.
And so I just want to make sure then that for sure it's going to appear again in January. I feel like sometimes we've said that and then it doesn't reappear.
Will do.
Sounds good to me.
Want to chime in? I agree with those comments. I think that's a good way to go forward. In the meantime, it'd be great to advertise more wherever we can, more than just the website. And getting the word out is a big part of it.
So yeah, we can do that and put it out on social media. And then I would encourage council members as well to, encourage people to put in an application and whatnot.
Is there an age?
Oh, yeah, good question.
There's currently one student member position, and then the rest are listed as adults, but I don't know if there's specifically, you have to be 18 listed in the bylaws. So that would be a question for our attorney if there is an age. I don't recall seeing one in the bylaws.
I'd have to look at the code, but typically it's adults. But that's really the councils, and it's easier to keep adult members, although maybe not always, because they don't move as much. Whereas junior members tend to be moving on, going to college, or going into the workforce. So
And if there's a specific position for a junior member, that would indicate that then the other ones would be adults, right? So
exactly, but I haven't read the code on this
Right.
topic.
best guess.
So they have to live in the city of Bonney Lake is one of the stipulations.
No, kind of yes, but no.
Oh.
So the way it's actually in this part, I definitely know. They just have to reside in the 98391
Oh,
zip code.
really?
Yes.
What if you
Because
have a
one of
college
our-
student whose parents live in 98391 and they can attend Zoom from college? I don't know.
Perfect.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that? Are we good? All right. No other discussion. We'll move on to our second item of the night. Madam Clerk.
This is discussion item only for AB 2444, motion M 2444, a motion of the city of Bonney Lake, Pierce County, Washington, to allow the recreation program to spend up to $148,000 more than it brings in for revenue for 2024.
Discussion or Mr. Wells, do you want to give background? I think.
So a little bit of the background, as many of you know, the city took over the recreation program as the lead agency in 2017. At that time, prior to that, it was a 3-party interlocal agreement between the city of Sumner, the city of Bonney Lake, and the primary group for the ILA was the Sumner Bonney Lake School District. And they did all of the processing or registrations in that. In 2017, the school district approached both of the mayors, and Mayor Johnson at the time brought it to the council for the council to take over. So that way the program would continue to run. In 2018, 2019, the program was revenue positive. Then we had a couple of years of COVID. And then recently, the council let the school district go with Right at School for the before and after program, which has then put a deficit on the program from not having that revenue. So we are doing the best we can to try to come up with ideas on how to generate more revenue while eliminating as much cost as possible. But the biggest expense right now is staff salaries. And the mayor and I are looking at some other funding sources, which include a meeting with a couple of county council members, as well as some other options out there on how to continue the recreation program with a minimal impact on our budget as possible.
Mayor Swanman.
Yeah, thank you. I know a bunch of people have done a lot of work for this, so I'd like, recognize, of course, former Terry Carter as a council member and deputy mayor did a lot of work on that, right? We had Carrie Hubler and originally Councilmember Fullerton did a huge amount of work and really delved into the details of this, and probably other people. So they spent an extraordinary amount of time actually looking at the program. So where we ended up, because we've been dealing with this in finance, and the reason it's kind of up at the top of the agenda is because it's a budgetary constraint deal where the way it sits right now that Mr. Wells identified that it's probably going to require some funds to continue to run in the city. The city, from what Sherry was saying, of course, has a pretty limited budget like normal for the general funds expenditure. So if we're going to keep the program at all, that's one of the decision points, of course, because you could say, okay, you're not going to have Parks and Rec, and you're just going to, give it away and let the pieces go where they go, right? That's something you could do, and nobody has been saying that I've heard. But of course, there could be 4 council members that say, "Yep, we're going to do that," and it's gone. So that's probably the end of that discussion, right? So if we're not going to get rid of it, which I'm hearing people say, we're not going to get rid of it, then there's the cost, right? So the way it's structured, it comes up to a cost. And there's where we, as a council, have to weigh in on ensuring that we give the staff, administration, what are we looking at spending on it, right? And we went round and around with that, and that's where all these detail-y stuff get, because there's been a huge amount of work on the details in the back end. More options for the future, like Mr. Wells and Terry's deputy mayor now, one each. Carter, identified opportunities in the future. That's all kind of future stuff. It comes back to, in my mind, the legislative of saying, okay, how much are you willing to try to recommend to budget for? And we're going to recommend, from the finance committee's perspective, as my understanding is like that $148,000 figure. So, at a basic level, we're willing to shovel $148,000 over into this program because as they do it now, we wish they would be revenue neutral, of course, right? Or even make money. That would be great. But most of these types of programs don't. We have to come up with that figure. And that's where we were like, okay, let's, we're told we could do it for 148 before, and that's what we would put on the table for them to budget for. Any questions?
Councilmember Baldwin.
I'm just curious. So in regards to other cities, is it common to have a recreation program that is funded by government where revenue is not the goal?
Yes.
Okay, so then my question then becomes, how much is that normally costing a city then, commonly? Because I guess I understand that we've been trying to be, revenue neutral or to have a positive profit. But like, as I've been kind of looking at a few other cities, not very many, but just a few others, they seem to have pretty robust, recreation programs, and those recreation programs are certainly not creating revenue. But they do cost, well, the city money. And so I guess that's, how much is it commonly? in other cities that have like robust recreation programs that are similar to ours. And then the second question is like, then where does, I guess, that money come from?
General fund, of course, right?
But then I guess the confusing part about all of our general fund conversations that happen throughout the year is sometimes there's comments of like, there's money. And then sometimes there's comments where it's like, there's no money. So
Well,
I
you know,
guess
this
I
is an
just
ongoing,
never know.
right? So
Yeah.
there's that. It's not a one time, we're proposing kind of an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
For budgetary purposes. And back to your question on what other cities experiences, that would be the hardest part, to find that apples kind of comparison, apples to
Yeah.
apples, because every city does their program in kind of a different fashion. So you definitely have some examples out there, but there's still, we're talking about one that covers it's not just the city of Bonney Lake per se, because it is definitely involved with a partnership with Sumner School District specifically, because they supply all their facilities. So you got all of those factors going in there. We've tossed around kind of percentage kind of things too, but in the end, you just have to kind of come up with a figure.
I would throw in, since Sherry's not here, I'll act as Sherry, but correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, please. But a lot of the times the no money aspect of it is because it's not in the budget. So they didn't budget for it. When there is money and they're like, oh, there's money there. Well, there is money in the ending fund balance. So there is money there. The problem is that this is an ongoing expense. And so every year it's going to eat up that money essentially. So eventually, if we don't budget for that, then our ending fund balance, over the years will go down eventually to nothing, and we'll be screwed. So
Yeah, according to Sherry, if you said, oh, no, wait a minute, we got to spend, $500,000 to do this particular program, it wouldn't work. You couldn't do that on a long-term basis with the revenues that the city is currently being able to bring in. Because there's a lot of programs that obviously are not, revenue neutral. So whether it's the police department, the senior department, or any of these types of parks department itself, there's all those types of issues. It kind of comes down to that. Is $148,000 going to be acceptable to the council for the administration to budget for? Council could always change that, right? We think the manager of the program says that they can do it for $148,000. And we expect the manager of the program to be able to do that. That's where we give them a budget and we say, go forth and have fun.
Councilmember McClymans.
So does this proposal correspond to adding an FTE?
No, I don't know.
This is just capital for projects?
This is essentially to pay for the FTEs we currently have working the program.
RevX,
Okay.
ongoing,
Okay.
no capital.
Right,
Like
so we're
just
not
for-
making any new commitments here.
Correct.
We're just going to continue paying people who are already working.
Yes.
Well, and more specifically, they're inside their budget, right? That's the big thing,
Mhm.
frankly, in my mind, whether they have 20 people or they have 2, they have a budget.
Right. So it's within an existing spending envelope that has been violated because we changed the agreement with Sumner School District.
Right.
And so now we're trying to recover, and that recovery is looking like it's 148,000. Staff has suggested it be 148,000,
That's my understanding, yeah.
right?
Sherry knows the exact figures. I think it leaves them basically with $60,000 or $70,000 left to spend in this year or something.
Mhm.
90 now? Is it 90?
Like that. It's kind of a, giving them the opportunity to figure out what is going to happen going forward, saying, hey, here's what we can give you for the rest of this year. Now figure it out, as inside City Hall, figure out what they need to do to be able to recoup the program, grow the program, and hopefully, not be as much of a deficit in future years, or maybe, they'll find a way to bring money back in again.
Mhm.
But if not, then still being able to find a way within our budgets going forward to fund the kids and even adults and seniors and all the programs that we've already have and how to grow them.
Councilmember Fullerton.
So this is going to be for 2024. This is not going to be an ongoing budget item.
It is ongoing, yeah.
It is going to be ongoing.
Yeah.
So into 2025 and then 2026, we're going to continue to, it's my understanding that we don't really have the money to budget that, or do we? Unfortunately.
Sherry's the
not
one
here.
that gave us this figure, but
I
again,
believe that was in September of 2023, we voted to give the Recreation Department the 148,000 that they were going to need to for a budget to continue without the before and after care. And then that was like a one-time
Right.
is what I believe
Right.
was what we agreed to. And so now they're asking for this to be for 2024, because that was 2023. Now we're in 2024, so we're asking for 148,000 for 2024. But now we're talking about putting this into the budget permanently.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
That would be brought up during budget discussions.
Okay, so that's something we can discuss
This one
during
is
our
just for the
workshop.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Definitely is. That's where the problem becomes, right?
Yeah.
Is so that they know how to do that, because when you're talking 100,000 plus or minus dollars on the long term, you just can't usually, ongoing, you can't get a good budget going if you don't step.
you don't have a budget to work with. It's
Right.
hard to stay within your budget if you don't actually
don't have
have
one.
one.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Councilmember Baldwin.
So I guess if the expectation then is for them to bring in revenue, and obviously like a revenue stream has been, cut off. I'm assuming then that there are conversations that are being had to drastically bring in, I guess, different things
Mhm.
to create revenue. Cause I feel like if it's just kind of like pockets of here and there of how we're gonna, it's not gonna create a lot of revenue. So I don't know if there's conversations.
Yeah, there is a lot of
that.
them.
Okay.
And it's very challenging too. And a lot, Councilmember Fullerton and Councilmember Hubler, and they've done a lot of work on suggestions for that. Of course, David runs a program. He's the program manager, so, he's in charge of whatever he needs to do, more advertising, changing the prices of programs, offering different programs, changing the way the fees are structured, all those types of issues they have to do.
We talked about new ways for them to be able to advertise, because we don't have we used to have a paper guide that go out for like Parks and Rec, and they would have stuff about the city and stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore. So getting more opportunities for recreation to be able to get in front of the families within the city, because that paper one went away a couple years ago.
Is it, cause then they
19.
started putting it on the peach
Mhm.
thing, huh?
Well,
Or-
Yeah,
yeah, and I don't
for
have
the
that
elementary
picture.
schools
Mhm.
or the schools. not-
Councilmember McLean.
Yeah, I think the advertising for this particular program, the right answer is to approach a school district and to enlist their network, right? To contact all the students and parents, right? Because they have that network already established. So I think we just have to work with them to get that done. I think there's a lot of value in having a good Parks and Rec program. I think finding our way through this transition is going to be difficult, and we got to do some things. What this looks like to me is 148,000 for this year. When we go into our budget, I think we really need to see what a plan is for, the next biennium, right? To say this is what we're going to do. And I guess one of the confusing parts for me is, what are we expecting from private organizations as far as support, right? So we should, see what MRAC is gonna do, what's gonna happen with pickleball. We have a lot of opportunities, but I think we really need to make one or two of them concrete.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I'm sure that you guys have just done rounds and this is probably a suggestion that's already been made, so forgive me if if you guys have already suggested this, but I just wonder, like, sometimes, when we did like the AWC conference and we're going out and seeing kind of these different ideas that are happening that, not everybody thought of, obviously, because, it's new and things like that. I just wonder if there's a way to maybe work with some other cities that are, have pretty robust like recreation programs that maybe are creating revenue and just seeing, just sitting down and having meetings with them, and just saying, what have you done? What is working well for you? I just think like if we just keep it all internal, like the ideas aren't going to be big enough. And because I don't think that we should, decrease the recreation program. It should be, it's an important thing in a city. So I don't know. I'm sure you guys, again, I'm sorry if that idea.
It's okay. Mr. Wells.
Can I jump in? I'm trying to find my little hand here, but I can't find it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so, one of it is just kind of, our expectations have definitely changed. From my knowledge, I don't know if there's any program out there, city or county, that's actually profitable. There's a lot of well-run programs, but even the best ones generally aren't going to be able to make it to where they're net zero even. We were in that situation, a very unique situation where we actually profited. We had that after school program. So once that was taken away, all of a sudden we're back into what every other city and county deals with, and that is, making an expense annually that's going into the Parks and Rec. And I'm not sure. I was, as we were starting the conversation, I just jumped on Renton because I know they've got a very robust parks department. Do a lot of in their bigger city, so I wouldn't say we can probably do that, but that's why I jumped on it. But what I was looking at their budget there is they put on general government funds. They've got their major revenues, so their taxes, fees, fines, everything. And on the other side, they've got primary services, and it's listed police protection, parks and recreation, municipal courts, legal services, street maintenance, planning, economic development, administrative functions. So the parks and recreation is delineated specifically as a primary service. And so they just look at it as, it's an expense of tax dollars are going for these primary services, and Parks and Recs is part of that. So part of it is kind of just, if we want a Parks and Rec program, I don't want to set David up for failure saying make it profitable or else, because this is not possible. I haven't seen any other programs anywhere that can do that. We obviously need to make it, as good as we can to try to make it as close to net zero as possible. But we probably need to have a bigger discussion on, are we going to see this as a primary service and, fund it going on? Because it's like Councilmember Fullerton was asking, it is an ongoing expense, and it will be an ongoing expense. So it's something we need to have that conversation. Are we going to continue to fund it on an annual basis? Or are we going to, figure out other ways or other alternatives?
Premier Swatman.
Yeah, and I think they pointed out too, the future opportunities with MRAC, MRFC, I-9, there's ongoing discussions with multiple organizations. Those are all definitely future possibilities that they'll have to work with, of course, in the Parks and Rec area. But don't tread, without taking those into account, right? Because you may see some of them as opportunities, but they're actually threats also to the program. Because a lot of them want to take again, they're they have to make money, whether they're a nonprofit or not. They can't exist without making money. So they're going to try to, they provide services to programs that are more profitable So, keep that in mind when we're looking at those things. We can do all that. We just need to, make sure we're eyes wide open to check those things out. They could be taking, profit from our programs,
Even if we partner,
Yeah. which we do need to do. That's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
we
need to do
may
that.
still end up putting out some money in order to
Yeah.
assist with those types of things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wells, I know you wanted to say something.
A couple of items that we've also realized in the last less than a year is, for instance, when Rich Hansen was working as the manager, he was probably working about 1.5 FTE because he was putting in so many hours to make sure that the program was running successfully. When he left the position, and Alex has done a great job stepping up, we've also this year incurred a large overtime bill because she is not exempt and he was. Also, Alex was running the before and after care program, and she was running that probably on about a 0.25 FTE for that amount of money. So you've lost a program that was really taking 0.25, lost a staff member that was doing more than above. So we're realizing now more of the real true costs of running the program. Also, one of the big things that we've now started to realize is that the BNA program was also a great source of advertising for everything that we did. So we had a captured audience that we could send out flyers to home every week if we needed to, once a month. Those students would pretty much consistently join our summer action day camp program. We're finding, since we don't have that automatic advertising, we're having to come up with different ways to advertise those groups. We have spoken with the district. The district is willing to help us with that venue, but just be aware that these are things that we're now realizing by not having the program that we need to come up with corrections for. So it's going to take us probably a full year from September to truly realize what all programs are working and successful and not successful based on our involvement in the past. And if you look at Maple Valley has a similar size service area to what we deal with for the school district. When I talked to David up at Maple Valley, I want to say it was 21 or 22, they had a 59% cost recovery for their entire program. They also have their own community center that they can run their own programs with. They can plan wedding receptions at, kind of like how we have the senior center, but they can truly use it as a full-on community center, which we don't have, where we can just book whenever we want. They also have a golf course, which has a different set of revenue. So as Mayor Carter said, and Deputy Mayor Swatman has said, there's no true real apples to apples on what we can compare other cities to. But industry-wide, it's traditionally been somewhere in the 70 percentile of a budget for what the cost recovery is from user fees.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, so Maple Valley is one of the cities that I was, looking at and thinking of. So if they have a 59% recovery, I guess then what does it cost the government then? Like
Who's the
what?
math major, 148, 58, how does that work?
Yeah, like
This year, yeah.
how much? And then even just thinking about what Councilmember Roach was saying, in that instead of it's, if I'm understanding correctly, what you were saying is that it is not necessarily a general fund situation where, the money is basically draining slowly over time, but instead is an actual allotted government.
Primary service.
Yeah.
Similar to how
So instead of
the
it just
budget
being
for the city.
general fund, it has a specific money source where money is then going into it and then coming out of it for just rec. Right? That's what he's
It'd be
saying?
just like you're funding police, or just
Yeah.
like you're funding, yeah.
Is that a possibility to look at that possible option?
That's what we're suggesting. Well, that's what we're suggesting, right?
But then what is the difference? You guys are saying that if it's in the general fund, it is slowly draining over time. Is the police draining over time?
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah, because it's not bringing in
Senior-
money, right?
senior-
but the revenues, what we're saying is I wish Sherry was around.
I know.
We just have to
We
find a
haven't-
way to balance it so that we're not losing too much, that it hurts us with the amount of sales tax that comes in every year. So like if
Yeah.
we only bring in 20 million in sales tax in a year, we have to figure out how we can fund the senior center, our police department, all our city staff, and recreation all within that budget. I know, just,
That's good.
just
Perfect. Perfect.
just to make sure that we can figure out how everything works together and that there's nothing left behind. Like we're not leaving out, the record program, or we're not leaving out the senior center, or we're not leaving out, the police department's budget. And it's just trying to figure out for this year. I see where Sherry is talking about, like we're already over budget because of where the budget was already at, what the set budget was for that program. It's over budget. So we don't really have the extra funding in the current budget, but there's money. It's just got to be basically kind of moved around. And we have a kind of like a slush fund too, that maybe that's where it can come from for this year to help us make sure that we stay not too negative.
Just revenues and expenses, right? So,
Yeah.
Sherry is projecting our revenues year after year after year after year. She's projecting what those are and then projecting what the expenses are year after year after year after year, and trying to match that all up with providing all these services that we're talking about: police, senior, parks, all of the type of general issues. Those are supposed to equal each other. They when they write them out, they have to by law, but
It'll be fun to put the new budget together.
that's why it needs to be a figure, because if we said, no, we're gonna, give them $500,000 a year to run this program, then it's like, yeah, Sherry's told me, no, you can't do that.
So Dan's suggestion doesn't change anything?
I think,
just-
go ahead, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just the realities of what it is. Because it's a general fund expense. You've got law enforcement, parks and rec, and go down the list. But at the end of the day, you got to balance your budget. So if you don't have any money, are you going to cut your police budget to go to parks? Are you going to cut your senior center money to go to parks? That's where the tough budgeting decisions come in. But I guess at the end of the day, it's a primary expense, just like law enforcement and everything else. It's just how do we prioritize it?
Councilmember McClymans.
yeah. So from a policy standpoint, I think, I would endorse spending the money this year. And then, like I said, going into the biennium budget, develop a policy that says we support Parks and Rec, and then figure out what that budget amount is.
It's 150, right?
Right?
That's what I'm
Well,
trying to
you're
get- that's what I'm
proposing,
trying to get.
I know you're proposing 140, and then if we go through the budget process and we walk away with 150 in the Parks and Rec department,
Yeah.
then that would, would that work? I mean,
That's
going
what
in,
Sherry's saying, yes.
she's saying we can go forward into the biennium with $150,000.
That's what she's told me.
Okay,
And I think the mayor too.
yeah,
But
But that's
like you're
different.
saying something different. You're saying not recurring, but that it would
No, he's
be, it
I'm
would be.
saying recurring, I'm saying, but we can only recur every 2 years, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we can't, right? I mean, every 2 years, we gotta go back and make another budget. And so that's when you make these decisions, is when you do your budget,
Yeah.
right? That's when we enforce policy, because we enforce policy by funding it.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what we do. So we can say, look, for this year, here's money. And then when we go to budget, we say, hey, we're gonna say it's $150,000 for the next 2 years. I think that totally makes sense, given where we're at. And then when you couple that with the idea of the goals that we're gonna make about how we're gonna grow the program and structure it, I think that's really important. I think I'm clear-eyed, help me here. And the fact that there's been a lot of circumstances that have gotten us to where we're at. We cannot let those circumstances dictate that we stay where we're at. We have to move the program in a direction purposefully that offers a great product to the citizens. But that's going to take money. That's not going to come. It's not net zero. I actually think $150,000 is a bargain, right? Because we spend what on the senior center, 500,
Something like that. I don't know if that's biannual or yearly.
right? So, I like this. I think I can support the policy going forward to try to work it. And it seems to me like it's a bargain if you think you can do it, right? But I think we have to really get a vision, set some goals, cast a vision, and work it. And I think we got to get the school district enlisted and helping us do the advertising.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, we're in the pickle because we have a partner, right? That it took the funding source, right? Or we complained about it and then they took it back. So
Yeah. Councilmember Baldwin.
So, is the district's currently, not advertising for the things at all? Cause when my kids were in Sumner School District, Bonney Lake Sumner School District, that's why we were a part of the rec program, is because we received things in the backpacks, in the email through that peach thingamabobber. Yeah.
to do doohickey now.
So is that not happening?
So we currently are not paying for advertising through Peach Jar.
Okay.
We do send home flyers from the different schools. For instance, after school track is in the process of registration right now.
Okay.
It'll have close to 350, 400 kids involved in after school track. All of those have pretty much gone out through each school. And so the schools will help the staff down, excuse me, the schools are helping the staff when we've asked. But we've not wanted to abuse that relationship and just send them every single thing every time. And so we're working on finding the balance between the school district and what we have to advertise, so we don't abuse our relationship and let them send out as much as we possibly can.
Is it still the same thing though, where the rec department is the one that is providing all the after-school sports for elementary? Because that's what
Correct.
it was before. So
Correct.
isn't that beneficial to all the students?
It is, and
Okay.
the different schools are helping get those flyers out to the students.
Just not through Peach Jar, just not through like
Correct.
email anymore.
It's here's a flyer, take it home to your parents if you want to join track.
I mean, could we have conversations with the district if there's a potential opportunity for us to be able to have some sort of email, like communications with
Certainly,
parents?
certainly, and
'Cause
those
I
are
didn't always get those papers
and those are happening now.
pulled up in the backpack.
And that's one of the downsides to having lost the B&A program, is not realizing how much we relied on that program for advertising. Because we would send everything home to those students, and that covered a large portion of our population using the programs.
So is it possible to talk with the school district about having, flyers or emails or whatever sent to those kids that are part of their current after-school program?
We could, but I doubt that the school district would want to send stuff home to a different vendor for a program for ours. I could see
But
them
that
sending it
vendor
out
doesn't
to,
provide sports and recreation. They provide after-school care, correct? They don't provide anything else. So it's not like we are infringing on a service that they are
but
offering.
it's the Right at Schools email list. It's not the school district's email list.
I see.
But yes, we are working with the school district to come up with more additional advertising opportunities for the program.
Okay.
And we'll continue to do so. And
And this, the school district is a partner in this whole thing, and the ILA for space, essentially, for fields, courts, all that kind of stuff, and money. They also provide, $50,000 of just money to assist the program as well. So it would be, I would think, in their interest to assist in advertising for a program that they're participating in.
Would agree.
Okay, Councilmember Hoopler.
Just to kind of went through Kent, because I know Kent's got a very robust Parks and Rec. They actually call theirs Parks Rec and Community Services. So they combine all of that into one, and they have a $44.5 million budget just for Parks Rec and Community Service.
Nice. Don't give these guys any idea. David's like, where did you go?
I know. So and they have no revenue showing for it. They just use their overall revenue of their budget. The revenues are taxes, license permits, intergovernmental revenue, charges for services, which maybe that's what things go under, is charges for services or something, fines and forfeitures, miscellaneous revenue, and transfers in. So they don't even line item in their actual budget, like out to at least to us right here that I can find.
What city?
They might-
Councilmember
Kent.
Kent, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, Kent has those enormous field
yeah. They have
and
yeah,
centers and
their parks. So, I mean, I know we're not that big, but just to kind of like,
ideas.
yeah, just kind of see how like it's a big budget. Their police department is $112.5 million each year. Sorry, chief. We don't have that money.
They spend every dollar of that.
Any further discussion? Okay. I think we're ready to move on to our final item. Sorry. Oh, so yeah, where are we moving this to? We got to
Mhm.
Deputy Mayor.
Council discussion next week.
Hopefully the council has discussed it enough to move it onto the consent agenda item. Any objection to that? Any council member can pull it off if they want to do later on, right?
I'd be okay with it.
That work?
Okay with that?
Consent.
Well,
Can you put that on full council?
sure.
Full
will do.
council.
Using that full council?
All right. Full council. Thank you.
Better now than later.
True.
Yeah, because he could pull it off.
Our final item, Madam Clerk.
This is a discussion item only, AB 2447, motion M 2447, a motion of the City Council of the City of Bonney Lake, Pierce County, Washington, directing staff to incorporate the proposed amendments contained in the attached Community Development Phase 1 document into the final version of the Envision Bonney Lake.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I think this was the same thing that we talked about for quite a long time. This was the large amount of amendments.
This is all new stuff.
2, 3, and 9.
It's either we do it this way or I bring you a 400, 500 page document in about December and say you have 2 weeks to approve it.
Opted for the one bite at a time.
We're trying to bring it in really small chunks.
Councilmember McClyman.
Yeah, so I reviewed this and it's always a lot of fun to review. I think you've done a good job. I looked at the red line, the table and the red lines primarily, trying to understand the difference. And, my walking away is that, is there any way to get the overall goal for what we're trying to do sooner than later? I know you said it's going to eventually get here, and then well, hold on a second before you answer that, because the overall goal kind of tempers it. Because some of the things I was looking at is, I was looking at some of the ads that we put in there, and I'm not really understanding, for example, in the health area, I'm not understanding how it's going to drive different behavior on our part, right? So I was looking at that going, there's not a whole lot to do. But now we're adding these guidelines. I'm like, is there something we're gonna hang on those guidelines later? Is there legislation we're gonna bring in and say, well, we're doing this because we set these goals? I mean, do we know of anything now in that health area? And then in each of these areas where we added new goals, I was like, oh, is there legislation we're gonna bring forward? If there is, let's just say this is legislation that is gonna be, is that we're preparing to approve there.
I'm going to apologize because that's not an easy thing to answer. So I'm going to try to take this in multiple parts. The overall objective is we're trying to write a comprehensive plan that meets the Growth Management Act and bring it to the council in bite-sized chunks that are more digestible than if I brought you the entire comprehensive plan when we're done with it in just, November, October, and say, we have to have this done by the end of the year. Here's a 400-page document to read. So we're trying to bring it in smaller bite-sized chunks. That's the overall objective, is to prepare a comprehensive plan that we can submit that meets both Vision 2050 and the Growth Management Act in order to have our comprehensive plan certified. So that's the objective. The first half of this document that we brought tonight is really kind of the demographic and economic data that provides the background information for how and what's going on in the city. You can't really know where you're going and plan for the future kind of unless you understand those trends. How are you doing on economic development? Where your strengths are in economic development? Where your strengths are in sales tax? What is the makeup of your community? Is it an aging community or is it a young family community? So that's really what the demographic data is about. The second of is the policies related to health, and some of those other policies are twofold. One, Vision 2050 has policies related to health, so we're trying to show how we're consistent with that. Two, some policies are related to legislative changes, some are not. We don't know which policy will result in a specific legislative change. Some are also related to grant applications that we're trying to accomplish. So, for example, talking about the health one specifically, CD policy 3.2 talks about improving walkability and promoting active and non-motorized forms of transportation to improve public health and minimize environmental impacts. Those are the types of policies we point to when we're applying for grants for the Fennel Creek Trail, right? So as we apply for non-motorized grants to support construction of sidewalks, those are the types of policies that we point to. Without those types of policy language in your comprehensive plan, when you get to that part of the grant application that says, how does this implement your comprehensive plan? You don't have that language. And so part of what we're doing is strategizing on what policies we need in the comprehensive plan to support those types of grant applications. The other one is talking about access to healthy foods, and that is through things like supporting community gardens, which we do here in the city of Bonney Lake, supporting the food locker program. And so those are the types of things. Some things are not necessarily legislative actions, but they're also ways that we partner with other agencies as they apply for grant applications. So as the food bank applies for grant applications, there's policies that they point to in our comprehensive plan that says, hey, look, the city's trying to do this, and this is how we're helping the city achieve that policy. So not necessarily that there's a legislative action. Now, reducing negative impacts about air, noise, and light pollution through regulation, environmental strategies. Yeah, as we find ways that development is impacting neighbors, those are the types of policies we rely on to bring forth legislative changes to deal with those specific impacts. So it's hard to say it's A or B. It is kind of setting the policy framework for how the city is going to engage both at the regional and community level on different things as they come up. These are what we go to when people ask questions like, does the city support this? These are the type of things that we go to. Now, I will say there are things that we're required to have in our comprehensive plan in order to get certified, in order to continue to receive grants and loans at the state and through the PSRC level.
Councilmember Hubler.
I know the county council is working on their comprehensive plan right now as well. Is there any like knowledge of like, is theirs going to affect us as the cities?
Not directly. Most of the county's comprehensive plan deals with the county areas that are under the jurisdiction of the county. What kind of guides and links all of the county comprehensive plan together with the local comprehensive plan is what we call the countywide planning policies. And those really just ultimately implement Vision 2050. So as long as you're hitting that mark for Vision 2050, you're also hitting those countywide planning policies. But a lot of this is also reflected in the countywide planning policies.
Mayor Swatman.
So I would believe, is it, most of the policy work is, as you identified, interrelated to other interests. But that's kind of the area where the council would possibly have a interest in looking at, would be the particular policies, because if, like policies identifies and encourage programs that reduce the, gap between wages paid and self-sufficiency standard. If the council was kind of like, oh yeah, we don't want to do that, then the council should be like, yeah, let's scratch that out of here. And those would be the kind of things that the council would look at in these documents, or?
Yeah, and I would say one thing to keep in mind as you look at the red line version, and I wish there was a better way we could show this. Some of those policies were already in the comprehensive plan. We moved them from the economic vitality element into the community development element to get rid of the economic vitality element. So a lot of those policies were already in there and have been in the economic vitality element. We just moved it over. But yeah, if there's policies that the council is wanting to get, that's why we're bringing this as a document for the council to review these policies as we move forward, and identify the ones that, and then we can go back to see if we need that for any sort of consistency standpoint. Because that's the other part of this. We did a gap analysis relying on our current policy structure of how we were going to meet some of these things. So as you pull things away, you could be pulling things away that we were using for consistency.
Right.
So we would just have to do that double check.
Yeah, is that, there might be an edit on there. I don't know. It's page 36 of the packet with it's policy CD 1.6. I don't know if that's the real version of it, but it says reduce the cap between wages paid.
Oh, it should be gap. I'll double check that.
I was thinking so, yeah. Okay. Well,
That's a typo.
there, Councilmember Fullerton missed that one on her edit, so.
Wasn't in minutes.
Okay.
Where is it
Councilmember
now?
Lyman's.
So
Yes.
you mentioned Vision 2050 twice, right? Have we had an overview of 2050 and why I care about it? I mean, to be frank, I'm just going to share with the council. I read 2050, right? And I found the approach to dealing with homelessness frightening, right? I'm afraid it will commit us to problematic implementation of things. And so there's not everything in 2050 I think I agree with, right? How do we not comply with 2050 in a reasonable way?
We lose our funding that comes through the Puget Sound Regional Council.
Yeah, but there are things that we can do locally.
But there are things that we can do locally, and that's what, I guess what I'm saying is we're writing the policy, understanding what the council's direction is in ways that we feel that we can make the argument we're consistent, but still consistent with the will of the city council, right? And so the reason I don't want to say you care about Vision 2050, I would say, what if we don't get our plan certified by the Puget Sound Regional Council? We lose grants and loans, and currently we have about $600,000, $700,000 that we would not be able to rely on. One of that is the $180,000 we got for the Angeline Road Veterans Memorial intersection design package. So that would be money that we would have to come up with locally if we chose to not proceed with being certified by the Puget Sound Regional Council.
Who at Puget Sound Regional Council certifies our plan?
The Puget Sound Regional Council. So as I've tried to explain is the Puget Sound Regional Council is made up of the elected officials throughout the Puget Sound region. So
And staff.
And so staff makes a recommendation, but it's actually the executive board and policy board, the elected officials who make the final decision. And not every city gets a seat. It kind of gets based on representation. So for Pierce County, there is a cities and towns person who is appointed by the Pierce County Regional Council that got appointed up to Pierce County. People from the Pierce County Council sit on the executive side. Pierce County Executive Bruce Danmeyer is part of PSRC, and so there's different people that are put up there through different mechanisms. Some have guaranteed seats like Seattle and Tacoma. Smaller cities like Bonney Lake were part of the cities and towns category. That includes Puyallup, and they pick somebody that goes and sits up there. I forget who the rep was. Councilmember Evans, for a couple years when we did our last comprehensive plan update, actually was on the growth management policy board at PSRC and making recommendations to the executive board. And so it's how engaged you are with the regional side is how much influence I guess you have at those levels. But I'm up there at least advocating for us when these types of certification issues happen. But that's why we're trying to balance what is the will of the council, plus how do we continue to get the plan certified and also meet the requirements of the Growth Management Act. So you have some flexibility and some latitude, but you don't have ubiquitous latitude and flexibility.
You love seeing the ages. Our age, groups here in the city. We have a lot of young people.
And it's important to note that any legislative change that we make based on policy does come back through the city council. So a policy statement is a should statement. It's not a mandatory statement. That's why none of these things say shall. It says should, and then how we work through those shoulds is how we work with the city council. I think the most important thing to pay attention to is when we get into the implementation element, which will be at the end, which will identify the things that we're doing. And some of those things are mandated by state law. Some of them would be things that we're implementing the way we're implementing the comprehensive plan. But that would really focus on what we're doing, I guess would be the way to answer that. And like the big policies that are in here also deal with property rights. We wanted to make sure that we had a section that dealt with property rights, as that's also a goal of the Growth Management Act. Not a lot of comprehensive plans have robust sections on property rights. Knowing that is a significant issue for the city council, we felt like adding some more policies in there around the protection of private property rights was important. So that's the other part of this that we brought forward.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so I'm reading part of this on page 49 of the packet, the property rights 9th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 5th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. Article 1, Section 16 of the Washington State Constitution provides that no private property shall be taken except for public purposes within its constitutional authority and only upon payment of just compensation. So I'm just realizing like a lot of the citizens who live in Bonney Lake are unable to make changes and upgrades to their property a lot of times because they're blocked because of the GMA or the compensation plan, because it will break a rule or whatever. Well, whenever you tell somebody that they can't do something with their property, then that's taking. So that then we need to figure out if the state is going to have to pay for a portion of the property if they're saying that you can't use this piece of your property because it doesn't fit within our plan for your city. So I have a problem with that because I do find more often than not that there's a lot of things people can't do in Bonney Lake because of whether it be restrictive areas, or if it's part because you're too close to the water or you're too close to a wetlands or whatever it may be, or just because it doesn't fit within the land use. So how many, with the comprehensive plan and the 2050, how many more restrictions are going to be added to the citizens? And is that considered taking? Because in my mind, it's taking.
I think I'll start, and I'm going to kind of pivot and throw it to Jennifer here in a second. And I think that, takings is not an absolute, you get to do whatever you want on your property. And if the government tells you one thing you can't do with your property, it's a taking, right? Because that's the whole basis of zoning, is that cities have the appropriate police powers to enact zoning regulations that are there to protect the public health and welfare. So that's kind of the basis. And that was ratified back in the 1930s by the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's kind of been the basis of zoning, for almost 100 years now. There's also what they call, there is a possibility for regulatory takings. However, there are provisions in our code that deal with that through the critical area code, through reasonable use exemption processes and stuff like that. The thing, that way I explain it to citizens, and I'll kind of kick it over to Jennifer after this, is that there's a difference between getting to do exactly what you want with your property and having economic use of the property. So if you have a property that's fully encumbered by wetlands and critical areas, there is a process by which you will be able to build a home on that property, which is economic use of the property. That's not to say that you will get to build the biggest house that you want and the exact house that you want. Those are two different analyses. And one is, if you take away, you can't build a home, then that would be some sort of possible regulatory taking. Just saying you have to build a smaller home is not necessarily, because you are having economic use of the property. It all comes down to reasonable economic use of the property. So Jennifer, do you want to, I'm trying to like stay at a high level and not get way down in the weeds.
About to die, but the microphone. Yeah, you're exactly right, Jason. So the takings under the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, is when you really take all the use of the property. Zoning, as Jason said, is a police power. If you didn't have the power to zone, your next door neighbor could tear down their house and put in a nuclear waste dump there, and the city wouldn't have anything to say about it. So clearly zoning is part of the police power. It's part of city building and defining the city. The one of my jobs, and Jason's as well, is that we make sure that the land use codes that come forward meet constitutional muster. So there is a reasonable use exception if a property is completely constrained by critical areas or some other constraints, so that people can use it. And the reason we put that in the code is so that the city doesn't end up having a successful takings claim brought against the city for denying all reasonable use of the property. The other thing I might mention is the comprehensive plan does kind of set the blueprint and the big idea of how you want your city to grow. But when push comes to shove, the land use code is what controls. So the Washington courts have opined that if the comprehensive plan says one thing and the land use code says another, it's the land use code that matters. So, that is what defines the use. The comp plan tells the city how to craft the land use code and how the zoning map should be, et cetera, but that the land use code itself is what controls. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Fullerton?
Yes, thank you.
And I would point out, just because I know how much you value property rights, the really nuance in the Washington Constitution is that, except for public purposes, under many other states, a city could take a piece of property and then then sell it to a developer because they think that a mall belongs there better than homes. Under Washington law, you can't do that. You can only take property for a public purpose. You could only, for example, condemn, a residential neighborhood for a park or a road or a fire department, a firehouse, et cetera. But I know that this council does not favor, particularly Councilman McClymon's, condemnation at all. So I think that Jason wrote this with the intent to really reflect the council's goals and values for the city.
That is actually 100%. This is trying to reflect things that we've heard over the last couple of years.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
No, yeah, we do. But, even with that said, you look at the current code, the current plan, we have one goal with three policies, right? The new one, we have two goals with like, a total of 8 policies now for property rights. So while that's near and dear to my heart, I'm like, do we really need the proliferation of goals and policies in the plan? What's that serving? And so that's why I got to the question of, is there legislation or grants or something that we're adding these things for?
I'll be honest, this section was really trying to get at the heart of things that we've heard from council. So as we do our work, we're doing it kind of within that vision of council. We could pretty much strike all of this and still probably okay and, getting our plans certified. This was more of policy language that we thought the council would support because it's things we've heard about. So for example, Councilmember Clymonds, there's been a lot of talk when we did the changes to warehouses, right? And the kind of the process that you wanted us to go through. We felt like, that we understood, but we wanted to document kind of that thought. So that's why we added like, persons with 300 feet of site-specific quasi-judicial and legislative action shall have the right to public notice and participate in the land use and zoning decisions of the city. So that was taking that feedback we've heard time and time again and creating policy language to provide guidance to staff as we do legislative changes, what the council's vision for our engagement strategy should look like. So it's really trying to this is also the blueprint by which we're going to do things.
What do you think? Does council think that's reasonable? I mean, it's good work. It's excellent work.
She find something wrong with it.
Don't, other than the question I ask is, did government just get bigger when I created that policy? That's the burden that.
Just more context though, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why that's why I need help. Right? I need help with this because I read this. I said, this is my problem is I look at this and I go, I like this. Right. But then I go, well, wait, I don't want to make a government that's bigger the way I like it. I want a government that's effective and well-run and, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think it makes the government larger because it doesn't say, hey, stand up this new regulatory framework, don't stand up this. It is when you are making those legislative changes, engage with the citizens, right? That doesn't necessarily, for me, I don't see that as making government larger. It's not creating a new entitlement or framework structure for language. It's providing guidance to staff to say, this is important to the city council. Sorry.
Councilmember Baldwin?
I may not be wording this very kindly, so I apologize. What is the purpose of this discussion? Are you wanting us to give some sort of direction, say something, make a decision? Like, what is the purpose of this conversation?
The purpose of this conversation is for us to know that these are the amendments that you want to include in the final draft of the comprehensive plan.
Which will eventually be a yes or no when?
In December. And so this is actually a motion that is scheduled for next week for the council to vote and say, these are the amendments that we want staff to include in these sections. And things like this will be coming to council pretty much once or twice a month for the rest of the year.
So we're gonna have this discussion and then there's gonna be a motion to then say yes or no.
Next week, yes.
Okay.
And then in a couple of weeks, you'll get a whole new package of amendments that say, do you want us to include all of these amendments? And we will slowly walk through all the comprehensive plan. What we're trying to avoid is I bring you a kind of fully draft final document on October 1st, and I say, Councilmember Baldwin, I need you to approve this 400-page document tonight without ever having looked at it once before. So that's what we're trying to. There is no good way to do this, right? Like it's a long, painful process, and this is the kind of the process that we used 10 years ago when council member swap, or deputy mayor Swatman remembers, I was bringing resolutions about once a month through the council. It's so that we're getting check-ins on, is the work that we've done consistent with what you want us to do? So that we can then move on to the next kind of chunk.
Councilmember Hubler.
So just kind of piggybacking off of what Councilmember Baldwin is asking is this something that even if, next week we're like, okay, yes, we see these as great pieces to add in, but maybe there's some minor changes or wording things that could be brought forward. But when it comes time to voting on and looking at the whole thing, we'll have another opportunity we'll continue being able to kind of look at these as we go forward before we make a final vote in December. It won't be like, this is set in stone right now. This is just here's what we would like. And then maybe as we're planning other parts of it, there might be questions come up about, maybe this section, and we come back to it and go, wait a sec, maybe we don't like that as much.
I would say it's not necessarily set in stone, but it's pretty firm. Because when we come in late November, early December for final adoption, we're not going to have time to rewrite whole sections and whole policies.
Okay.
Tweaking little things, wordsmithing, those types of things, yes.
Okay.
But I don't like this whole chapter, you need to rewrite it. We won't have the capacity to do that, which is why we're asking for council's kind of pre-blessing on chunks at a time, getting back to Councilmember Baldwin's questions, like, what are we trying to do here? It is kind of approving chunks of the comp plan as we walk through it versus, and if the council wants to wait till the whole chapter's finished and I bring you the whole chapter, we can gladly do that. You think this packet is thick? When you get the final ordinance for the comprehensive plan, it will be a 500 to 600 page packet.
So we need to take the next week and really dive through and read every piece of this, make sure we understand.
So I would break it into two parts.
Okay.
Depends on what you're after. And the way that our staff did this, and I really think it's a good idea, is if you go to it and you go to page 24 of your packet, page 24 of your packet through page 51 is the final element with all the changes accepted. So if you're just wanting to know what is the final product going to look like, and am I okay with that final product, that's all you need to read. We also know that there's council members that want to dive into what were all the changes. So the second half of this is the exact same chapter, but in all what we call legislative format with everything struck out and underlined. So the council members that want to go into excruciating detail of every little change can do that. And we can also say is at the very back, there's also a table that even gives a higher level, and that's on page 93, that goes through the sections and what we did. So if you want to even just say, go to the highest level and say, what did the staff do? And that's just pages 93 through 95. It's like, here's the section, here's what we did, and here's the reason for the change in that table format. So that will give you the 60,000 foot level kind of view. If you just want to see what am I going to ultimately approve and am I okay with that final version, that's that 24 through 55, and you can just read it and that's done. If you want to see all the little changes, that's when you go to that other section and read all the little red line changes of everything we made. So I guess if depending on your level of how deep you want to dive into those documents.
Councilmember Fullerton.
So I'm looking at the page 53 of the agenda packet, 96. The economic development, encourage economic development throughout the state that is consistent with adopted comprehensive plans, promote economic opportunity for all citizens of this state, especially for unemployed and for disadvantaged persons, promote the retention and expansion of existing business and recruitment of new businesses, recognize regional differences impacting economic development opportunities, and encourage growth in areas experiencing insufficient economic growth, all within the capacity of this state's natural resources, public services, and public facility. I mean, I don't understand how government can create sustainable business and create retention and expansion of existing businesses and recruitment of new businesses.
So all of that language there that says, where it says urban growth, reduced sprawl, housing, economic development, property rights, permits, open space, recreation, citizen participation, and coordination, that's just a restatement of exactly what's in the Growth Management Act. So we're just saying, this is what's in the Growth Management Act verbatim.
You can't tax businesses into prosperity. So if we're continually raising taxes, then and requiring businesses to provide services for their employees, then you don't have retention because businesses can't afford to stay in business. So is this going to be?
Guess what I was trying to say is whether this
part of Bonney Lake's MO or?
No, we're just saying that when you read it, these are the goals out of the Growth Management Act. That's what I was trying to say is the language here is just the verbatim language that's in the Growth Management Act. And we're just saying that the goals broadly that we're trying to address of the Growth Management Act in this chapter are these goals, right? So these are the goals of the Growth Management Act as adopted by the Washington State Legislature. So council says strike all of this language. It still exists in the RCW. So it's not so much that this is a city policy, it's that these are just recognizing what is written in the Washington State Growth Management Act. And we put that in there so people could see what's in the Growth Management Act and then how we're trying to implement those things.
These are things we don't really have control over. We just have to figure out how to work within those.
I would say these are the goals we're trying to implement through the comprehensive plan at our local level of desire.
This is such a broad statement right here. Like, this is massive. And like, that's just one paragraph of what we're going through here. And this is an impossibility for a government to even comprehend that they can recruit new businesses into regional areas. And then open spaces, I mean, conserve fish and wildlife habitat, increase access to natural resource lands and water, and develop parks. So you can't conserve fish and wildlife and increase access if you're decreasing the ability for the people to fish. And, you know, they're shutting down certain parts of, waterways, and they have this new rule or law where they can pick a water creek or water or lake or something and claim that it's that the fish are being harmed or something. And then they can say, oh, well, we're going to shut down this one. You can't go fishing here. Can't go parking here. You can't go camping. You can't do any of these things. But then they're saying that they're going to open up and give more access to natural resources. I mean, this is just an entire oxymoron. There's not one statement in here that this government can actually obtain.
Can I make a
anything. I
suggestion?
mean,
Council Member Fullerton.
how are we gonna fix it?
Yeah, so I have a hard time reading this in general for the same reasons. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is troublesome for me. I think the important part is that we look at the statistics that are in here and the demographic report and make sure that we feel like we understand them and that they're accurate and they're not being biased in a way.
Mhm.
Then the second thing is make sure that the goals and the policies are what we want to use to guide our legislation and our spending, right? The rest of this stuff is really coming from,
Bureaucracy.
yeah, from a bureaucracy and from organizations we probably fundamentally don't agree with. But it's where, I think Jason's done a great job of where the rubber meets the road is, here's our goal, here's our policies, and we just need to make sure those are what we clearly do, because that's what we're going to hang, like he said, grants on, legislation on, and the rest of this that's in here. I think the statistics are important, but and to try to keep an eye and say, yeah, I think I understand them and that they're consistent with what I know. Or we go find out if they are.
What page are you on?
Well, yeah, I was looking at the baby boomers, right, or the Bonney Lake's generational makeup, right? Because I find that interesting.
58 of 96, if you're looking for the red
Yeah,
line.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so when I started reading this, I struggled with it and I was like, I can't read all the pros. So I went and looked at the numbers. That's my safe space.
Yeah.
And then I started at the bottom at that table. And then I went to the red lines and the goals and the policies. And I said, okay, this is kind of the goals and the policies. Again, the really only section I thought was probably not, I would probably ask to edit out would be the health policies, unless there is something in there that we need for a grant or that was going to drive us to do something meaningful, right? I'm afraid the health policies are going to drive us to help finance the homeless industrial complex.
Right. So this is essentially what we were looking at before with all the little houses and, all the other little graphics. Or is
This is
this
kind of the-
another part of kind
another
of the same thing?
And I would say,
Okay.
if you're gonna focus on anything, it is focus on the goals and policies, because that is, Councilmember McClymans is correct. That's where we start to reflect back on legislative. And really, as I said, we do have to have health policies for some of our grants. We do have to have some health policies for some consistency work. So, if there are concerns with language, please let us know. We are trying to balance 4 different things simultaneously. But a lot of it, and Councilmember Clyman's, for any of the tables, there is a footnote, and that footnote says where we got that data from. So we are trying to at least reference back our sources, so it's not just we said, but a lot of it is census data. A lot of it is data we get from the state out there. Yeah, I would really focus on the policies, and if there's questions or concerns, just let us know. That really is what's going to drive things for grant applications and legislative changes.
I know Councilmember Baldwin had a question or a statement.
I think since, you are, this was quite a grueling document to run through, and I didn't really recognize the table and all that until, well, it's like near the end. But anyway, since since the city knows the will of the council, like, is there even a way to just, because this is all like lingo that you're extremely familiar with, right? As you're reading through, obviously you're editing this document and you're looking through it, which I appreciate you so much for. And I know you're looking out for certain, wordings and things like that. Is there a way, instead of just notating every change, because even as I looked at changes and crossings out, I wasn't even sure what the purpose of crossing some of that out was. And so I think it's just like, where are there areas of red flags that we should be looking at more closely? Because I feel like when it comes to the GMA, whatever, you know how a lot of us feel about it, and that we don't necessarily trust what's coming down from the legislature, and we want to make sure that we're not missing anything, I think is the main thing. Like, I understand all these documents that are coming out. If there's a large section of document, is there something that we need to make sure that we pay very close attention to?
I would say any of the yellow boxes
Yeah,
have goals and policies.
okay,
If you were to boil it down and say, how can I do this the quickest way to understand how it will impact the city or set the policy framework?
yeah,
It's not all the narratives, it's not all the tables. That's there for background information and an explanation there.
yeah,
If it's really the yellow box on page 35 and 36 of the packet, then there's another one on
computer dying.
a couple pages later, and then one, I think there's like 5 or 6 of them throughout the whole document.
Mm.
Those are the things that were really, that's where the council's saying, this is our goal, this is our policy.
Yeah,
And as I said, there are things that we have in here for grants and loans and consistency. So it might not be where I recommend pulling it out, but we can work on the wordsmithing if there's problematic language into the council.
yeah,
I hesitate to say, this is your red flag, because I might not see something as a red flag that the council sees as a red flag. And I would hate to substitute my judgment as a staff member for the judgment of the city council. But I would say if you're wanting to boil it down and get through it as quick as possible and focus on the thing that has the biggest impact, it's the goals and policies.
the yellow boxes.
Yes.
I mean, I read all the yellow boxes. Like what Councilmember McClymans was saying, as far as like some of the health things that were placed in there with the desire to, you said it wasn't necessarily policy things that had to do more with like being able to get funding. I mean, I think it's that kind of stuff, like, and that becomes something tricky that is then used later. And now we have a homeless encampment somewhere.
I think that gets back to what Mrs. Robinson was talking about. This is not going to be the controlling document. So there's 2 things to keep in mind. One, this isn't the controlling document. That's the actual legislative changes that the council adopts in this room, right? We do reflect back on, hey, this was the policy that we're trying to implement, so that we're showing consistency between the policy framework adopted by the council and the legislative actions that we're taking. The second thing is, if there is a policy that becomes problematic and that policy needs to be amended, the council can amend the comprehensive plan every single year. You only do it once a year, but you can amend it every year. So if there's a legislative action that comes forward and the council's like, whoa, we don't support this legislative action, and a staff member, say it's not me, goes, hey, this is the policy that we're trying to implement with this, the council does have the legislative authority to say, we're going to amend that comprehensive plan policy as part of our annual amendment cycle. And so that is something that definitely the council can do. It's not a set in stone document that we don't touch. We can put on the shelf and not touch for 10 years. That's totally possible too, but the council does have the right to authority. We just have to do it once a year. We can only amend the comprehensive plan once a year by state law. You can amend development regulations as much as you want, but it would only be, I guess it would be, you'd have to wait for the legislative ordinance to come forward to see whether or not it's something that you can't live with.
Any further discussion?
I know this is tough. I understand it. I get it.
I do appreciate all your work, and Attorney Robertson, I appreciate your legal justifications, whatever we call those.
And if there's a way that the council, I guess, present it so it's easier to digest, please let us know. We're trying our best to give you the clean version so you don't have to read the track changes. We're trying to give you a table so you don't even have to look at we just don't know how much each council member wants to dive into this. And I think that's
we just don't want to miss stuff. We don't want to miss things that
Mhm.
could jeopardize our community. Period.
I would say the biggest thing the council did last week was a thing that I think would have the most impact, right? The growth numbers, the growth projections, the growth targets, I think, in my estimation, really have the biggest impact. And we now know where those are set, and we will build around those things, right? Because if, I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of this stuff is, and that's one thing to keep in mind as you read this too. And there's not as much in this section, but the other thing that we did is we put in, and I don't know if this is a great thing to do, but we put in excerpts from our comprehensive plans going back to 1964 to show that really some of these things that we're talking about, we have been talking about since 1964. And if you haven't seen this really dramatic change, it really doesn't change. Some of the verbiage has changed, but if you look at just going to the introduction chapter for this element, it talks about the intent of the planning commission and the town council is to develop a new town within the greater Puget Sound region. This town is to be well organized, have adequate play spaces for children, have school facilities within walking distance of small children, shopping centers at convenient places, separate pedestrian and vehicle traffic, and provide those amenities of life which make life well worth living within the town of Bonney Lake. And that was from the plan of Bonney Lake, May 2nd, 1964. The exact same things that we were talking here about tonight. We're just using different terms and maybe exploring topics more, but that general direction is what we've been talking about, for almost 60 years.
Do you feel like you have?
We'll put it on as a full council item next week, and then we will see if there's additional changes.
Okay. Oh, Councilmember McClain.
So just bear with me. I'm sorry. I know it's late and I know this is not the most fun topic, but the resident occupations excerpt from May 2nd, 1964, if you took the date off that, you would know that that wasn't this year. And I want to camp on that just for a second. Bonney Lake is primarily a residential, family-friendly neighborhood. It's been that way since the 60s. Right? So it's obvious. While we are on the hill overlooking the industry grow, right? So I want to keep it that way. That's why I wanted to be on council. Because I think everybody who drives, the average commute in Bonney Lake is over 45 minutes. Right? I participate in the community because I'm in the brotherhood of people that commute to Seattle every day from Bonney Lake. Right? Love it. I'll do it because Bonney Lake's beautiful and I love it. So anyway, it was this way back in 1964. So let's remember that, and going forward, I just encourage everybody to remember that. That's all I wanted to say.
Right. Any further discussion? All right, I think we're done. We're adjourned. Thank you.
That was exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Thank you, Lord.
Gas in my